What's up, spectators? Welcome back to the episode of the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. We are in the middle of case 1. We've been introduced to the main protagonist who is on trial. And yeah, I accidentally pushed, because it's displaying the Xbox controls to me. I think I pressed autoplay, so it skipped a line or two of dialogue. I think we left off around the battle hasn't even begun yet. So essentially, Kojima speaks, the defense pleads not guilty, Your Excellency. We invite the prosecution to stop making empty threats and bring out its witnesses. Then we'll see just how decisive this evidence really is. Indeed. Prosecutor Alchi. Oh my god, okay. Please continue with the proceedings. Well, you were warned. The young can be so reckless. You know, many call me a saint, but I can be a devil when I want to be. That's so cringy. In a few short moments from now, that dumbstruck young mouth of yours will be silenced forever. The prosecution calls its next witness. Very well. Officer, bring forth the witnesses at once. I did read that, if you guys recall from the Layton Ace Attorney crossover, they were first introduced to the mechanic of cross-examining multiple witnesses at the same time. I believe this game carried that over. Kindly state your names and occupations for the court. Yes, sir. The Great Nippon Imperial Army Sergeant Ayesa Nosa, reporting for duty, sir. It's a mouthful. Myself, I find employ as a purveyor of fine articles of antiquity from the efflorescence of our nation, Nippon. Look at his little bouncy earlobes. And conduct my trade from Ryunosuke, a humble premises in the 2nd District. Curio Korekuta at your service. An antique dealer and a soldier. What an unusual pairing. Both of these gentlemen were present at the restaurant on the day in question. They must be the diners at the other table that the waiter mentioned. Myself, I habitually take tea of the most exquisite aroma at the establishment in question, always post-noon. And not infrequently converse with interested parties regarding the curious with which I make my business. I can't understand a word that old man's saying. He's an antique dealer, and it sounds like he's a regular at Le Carnaval. He seeks out potential customers who may have an interest in antiques and tries to sell his wares to them. He obviously targets La Carnaval because it's a high-class restaurant with rich clientele. Right, I see. Although, to be honest, that sergeant looks more like he'd be a seller rather than a buyer. Now, you both witnessed the precise moment of this most atrocious incident. Is that correct? Affirmative. The enemy unit was seen attacking the foreigner in what can only be described as an act of war. It was that black uniformed rogue infantryman over there who unloaded his firearm. This man's as impossible to understand as the other. But I'm almost sure I heard a strange noise during that last thing he said. So, this is the decisive evidence the prosecution was threatening. The soldier's claiming that he actually saw the precise moment you shot the victim dead. Well, are you starting to feel uncomfortable? If I'm honest, I was feeling uncomfortable from the start. Now the court will hear your formal testimony, please. You'll state everything you saw at the precise moment that the incident occurred. Sir, yes, sir. Standing by, ready to report. Unsavory memories of a most acerbic afternoon? Acerbic? Maybe? What the witnesses saw. I was ingesting a regulation beefsteak at the restaurant while having a tactical discussion with the old man. Myself, I was extolling the virtues of a particularly fine golden curio to the military gentleman. At that precise moment, a firearm was discharged. I observed the enemy's actions with my own eyes. The black uniformed varsity cadet fired on the English civilian, and from the back, the cowardly little whistle. I was on my hands and knees investigating the whereabouts of my mysteriously absconded precious curio. It's a baby. It's like the sound of a baby every time he hears a certain word. I just don't know what it is yet. Well, so you, Sergeant Nosa, actually witnessed the vital moment. You saw the split second when the defendant fired the weapon at the victim. Yes, sir. Affirmative, sir. That wicked university cadet, sir. The cruel and unforgivable enemy. I still don't know which word the sound is referring to. What times we live in when an English gentleman may be assailed in the broad light of day. But this is ridiculous. I didn't shoot anyone. Is that really true, Ryunosuke? I don't know anymore. Stands next to the prosecutor. All I did was pick up the gun that I saw lying on the floor. After I'd said hello to Dr. Wilson, went back to my table and sat drinking some coffee. Then, when I'd finished, I got up from my seat to leave the restaurant. When I noticed an English-made gun next to the chair, where the professor was sitting. I just noticed my mouse cursor's on the screen. I apologize for that. Well, it's only been 6 minutes. That's not too bad. I caught it early. I thought perhaps the professor had dropped it. So I bent down, and just as I was picking it up, well, if that's the truth, there was obviously a criminal on the scene somewhere. And somewhere in these two witnesses' testimonies, there's a clue as to who that criminal was. There is? Ryunosuke, you must exercise your right to cross-examine the witnesses. Do it now! As we have heard, Your Excellency, there is no room for doubt in the testimony of these witnesses. The defendant is clearly guilty. It is time to bring this despicable student to justice. Certainly, the testimony the court has just heard eliminates any vestige of doubt. Therefore, it is my grave duty to declare the verdict of this— Yes! Yes, you should! Oh. What in the name of the Emperor is the meaning of this outburst? The defense demands its right to a cross-examination. He knows our words. Dear me. Let me guess. The Hachimaki headband boy next door told me to do it. How pathetic. How did he know? The prosecution objects. This is a clear waste of time. The defendant obviously has no experience. How can he possibly carry out a cross-examination?
Objection!
The defense is asserting its right to a cross-examination. Whether or not you think he's capable of it is irrelevant. Kazuma's so commanding. Woo! Very well. Let the defense conduct a cross-examination of the witnesses. Alright, this is where the battle really begins, Ryunosuke. But I don't even know what I have to do in a cross-examination. Isn't it obvious? You have to expose the lies in the witnesses' statements. How? You didn't fire the gun, which means what that soldier said has to be a lie. Well, yes, but it's just a case of proving it, and the key to doing that is evidence. Right, evidence. All you need to do is present some decisive and indisputable evidence that proves the witness is lying. Now let's go. Don't let them beat you. Oh, that was such a small sound. Little sound when he put his hands down. No slam. It's just... All right. I was ingesting a regulation beefsteak at the restaurant while having a tactical discussion with the old man. Now, for those of you familiar with Ace Attorney games that we've played before, obviously, the right thing to do is press every statement, simply to see what the responses will be, or get some additional information about what they just said. And then eventually, when we do find the correct thing to present evidence on, we will present it. So let's go ahead and press left bumper.
Yes!
Why aren't you saying anything? Is this some new interrogation technique? I hadn't actually thought of what I wanted to ask. Just about anything that catches your attention. Anything that bothers you. Alright then, this beefsteak you mentioned. What kind of food is that? Beefsteak is a delicious cut of veal vigorously cooked on a cast iron grill and served piping hot. Oh. If food could receive medals of honor, beefsteak would be almost as highly decorated as a cutlet. Oh, he has a baby on his back! That's gotta be what it is. That's what hold on. Let's see if we can... Oh, well, let's let him ask his question first. This cutlet you mentioned, what kind of food is that? Yeah, that's gotta be what the baby, the purple is. He's got a baby attached to his back. Cutlet is a delicious cut of veal tossed in breadcrumbs and deep fried in cooking oil. Accept your guilty verdict, atone for your crimes, and when you're released from prison, try it! Yes, sir, I will, sir, on the double, sir. Straight to prison I go. Sorry to interrupt, but how about trying to stick to questions that are relevant to the case? Oh, sorry. I'll do my best. So, next question. Is it just me, or do you keep hearing a sort of wah crying? Negative. Well, at least we've learned that he's a big beef lover. Affirmative. It's not easy knowing what questions to ask. Myself, I was extolling the virtues of particularly fine golden curio. Press.
Yes!
I have no idea what you're talking about. A koban boy. You mean an old Edo coin? The day prior to the incident, a treasure of exceptional value from the Hoei period entered my possession. I took myself to the restaurant the following day, with said item secreted in my bosom pocket, in the hope of an affluent cognizant appraised of its indisputable value being present. So you were hoping to sell your koban coin to Sergeant Nosa, whom you met at the restaurant. Yes, it's quite clear where you're going with this, boy. You were about to assert that a penniless soldier would have no hopes of purchasing a precious koban. Isn't that so? Well... You little upstart cadet. You want to add disrespecting a superior officer to your list of crimes, do you? Blatant subordination. Insubordination. Although penniless might be just the word I was looking for. In any case, the hour was already advanced beyond that of the midday luncheon. There remained precious few present with whom I could engage in discourse about matters of business. The gentleman beside me, who was grappling with his braised veal at the time, was my sole prospect. I see. At that precise moment, a firearm was discharged. I observed the enemy's actions with my own eyes.
Yes!
So, you're saying that you actually saw me at that time? Affirmative, I saw you, laughing, cackling, like a madman as you trained the barrel of your gun on the English civilian. But that's impossible, I only... Allow me to confirm just one point, please. What's that, Private? Thinking carefully about the statement you just made, it seems to me that it must have been just after you heard the gunshot that you looked over to the victim's table. And so what if it was? Well, if that really is the case, it would mean that you didn't in fact see the precise moment when the killer actually fired the gun. Ah, and double ah! My sixth sense... Sorry? My sixth sense of danger. I picked up the waves of murderous energy radiating from your foul mind. Which means, a split second before you pulled the trigger, I was looking right at you. Surely that's not really possible, is it? Do you think think I'd have got where I am today in the army if I couldn't sense the danger in the air, son? Well, it would seem this soldier is absolutely convinced that he saw you do the deed. This is not good. The black uniformed varsity cadet fired on the English civilian, and from the back, the cowardly little weasel.
Yes!
So this black uniformed university cadet, you're saying that was... I've had just about enough of your sauce, cadet. Sauce? Who else do you see around here in black uniform? Lots of people. There's someone standing right next to me who fits the description as well, but... It was you, you little weasel. You unloaded the firearm on that man from behind his back, and you call yourself as a citizen of the great empire of Nippon. You disgust me. What is it, Ryunosuke? I'm not quite sure. It's something that the sergeant just said, but I can't put my finger on it. Something's playing on my mind. In that case, check back over the details of the evidence you've gathered in the court record. And if you find an inconsistency there with what the witness just said, then don't hold back. Present the evidence to the court. Thrust it in the witness's face and make him choke on it. Alright, before we get to that, I don't want to present something at this statement, but I would like to review the evidence, which is, let's see, a photographic print that shows the victim. He was shot from the front in the chest and subsequently died. So that's clearly the inconsistency they'd like us to present on. But before we do that, we're on the final statement. So let's go ahead and press this as well and see what he says. I was on my hands and knees investigating the whereabouts of my mysteriously absconded precious curio.
Yes!
On your hands and knees. Could you explain that, please? That's right. Spurning the arthritis I was in order to retrieve the lost piece. What lost piece are you referring to? The Koban, of course! The exquisite Hoei era Koban coin. Ugh. I had just been showing the rare treasure to the military man as he masticated his meal. After averting my eyes from the briefest of moments, it was there no more. It simply vanished. The Koban vanished. Hence, I began to acquaint myself with the intricacies of the floor in order to locate it, and then it happened. Listening to him talk is like when you submit, you're writing a paper for school, and you're like, wow, this is incredibly basic, so let me just right-click synonym this entire thing. You heard the gunshot, you mean? None other than, though it was no concern of mine, I was frantically scouring the floor for the aforementioned lost treasure. So, in fact, you didn't actually witness the precise moment when the incident occurred. Indeed. Myself, I did not. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. Listen, Ryunosuke. We know there are lies lurking in these statements. It's time to expose them. I understand that. The question is, how? Like I said before, the key to this is using evidence that you've collected. You can examine and present evidence while the witness is giving testimony by pressing right bumper. Go through each witness statement and the details about each piece of evidence and compare all the facts. Somewhere in there you'll find something that doesn't add up. In other words, an inconsistency. When you find a statement and a piece of evidence that seem to contradict each other, present your evidence with why and rip the witness apart. Just be careful, because if you assert a contradiction that has no basis, you'll be given a penalty. If you're dealt too many penalties, the defense's case will fall apart, and you'll receive a guilty verdict. So that's it. Peruse the evidence in the court record and find an inconsistency with the witness's statement. Alright, I'll give it a try. You can hear the witness's statement over and over again as many times as you'd like. So keep your head and be measured in your attack. Good luck, partner! Alright, let's see if we can skip ahead to the fourth statement about being shot from the back. Right bumper to present. Present the evidence of the photograph.
Yes!
What are you playing at, cadet? What is the meaning of this subordination? Thrusting some photographic print in my moustache. Inconsistency? I mean, yes. There's a clear inconsistency here. What nonsense. What can this print possibly tell us that we don't already know? Well, obviously, that, I know what I want to say, but the words just won't come out of my mouth. I think this proves beyond any doubt, Your Excellency, that there is no place for an amateur student here in this grand courtroom. This is so frustrating. Oh, please. Surely this doesn't require an explanation. It couldn't be more plain. To spell it out would be an insult to the court. Kojima. What? What are you talking about? It's apparent from a single glance at the photographic print presented by the defense that there's a clear discrepancy here with the sergeant's statement. What? Sergeant Iesaноsa. Oh, I get it now. Yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, sir, no, sir, probably. Yes, sir, what, sir? The statement you just made was this. The black uniform varsity cadet fired on the English civilian, and from the back, the cowardly little weasel. Also, just out of curiosity, is it Prosecutor Ouchie because it's Ouchie? Because it's normally Prosecutor Payne? Just throwing that out there. Yes, sir, affirmative, sir. I witnessed the crime with my own military-grade eyes.
Yes!
But no! That just can't be. And why not, cadet? Because... Take a close look at the print. The victim, Dr. Wilson, died from a bullet wound to the chest. Ah. Sergeant, according to your witness statement, the culprit shot the victim from behind. And that is the obvious discrepancy here. Well, how do you explain it? Oh, What the? What was that? Something just popped up from behind his back, but he pushed it down again. Certainly there's a clear discrepancy with the facts here. Would you not agree, Sergeant Nosa? Yes, sir, at this juncture that would appear to be indisputable. Until the moment I heard the firearm discharge, my eyes were... firmly fixed on the delicious Le Carnival steak, sir. What? The last testimony the court heard has proven one thing beyond all reasonable doubt. This witness, Sergeant Iesaноsa, did not see the defendant firing a gun at all. That's absurd. I think the conclusion we must draw is simple. There is no place for an amateur prosecutor here in this grand courtroom. Kjorg. There's been a complete turnabout in the mood of this trial, just from that one discrepancy. So this is what being an ace attorney is all about. Get it? Ace attorney? But I definitely saw him. That university cadet there, he was pointing the firearm directly at the victim's back.
Yes!
But I never fired the gun. All I did was pick it up off the floor. And you, old man, you didn't see the moment the victim was shot either. Myself, I've already been quite clear. The gunshot interested me not. I was far too busy on the floor. Oh yes, you were looking for your Koban coin, weren't you? Indeed, the prized Hoei-era Koban. Hunting around under the table, I was, in case mayhap it had fallen there, and then it happened. You heard the gunshot, you mean? Indeed I did, but I heeded it not, for I was concerned only with finding my absconded Hoei treasure. Nothing could distract me. Out of interest, did you find the coin in the end? No. I see. That lamentable day, the precious Hoei Koban was lost to me. No doubt some unscrupulous scoundrel pocketed the prize coin for himself. As I am sure everyone present is aware, this case demands a swift and decisive resolution. Our government has promised to send a full report to Great Britain by telegraph this very afternoon. Nevertheless, the witness testimony the court has just heard was inconclusive. No matter how subservient our government feels it must be to the British. It would be unforgivable to deliver a verdict on this trial right now. What is your position, Prosecutor Ouchie? Worry not, Your Excellency. The defendant may have fled a tiger at the front gate, but he will find a wolf at the back. I feel like that's a voice he deserves. My witnesses have further testimony to make. Explain. Upon hearing their next statements, it will become abundantly clear that there is only one person who could possibly have committed this despicable crime. The equally despicable defendant, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. What? He really seems to have a despicable opinion of you, doesn't he? It's genetic. Very well, the court invites the witnesses to testify again. You will thoroughly explain the reasoning behind the prosecution's allegation. Is that clear? As clear as Kiriko glass, Your Excellency. Yes, sir, at once, sir. Awaiting signal to testify, sir. Excuse me, but there's something or someone peeking out over your shoulder, I think. Affirmative, the newest member of the Nosa family to rise up through the ranks. Name, Ido. It would seem those straps are a sign of the sergeant being too strapped to afford a nanny. Ido. Attention! Your father is about to quell the enemy. Watch and learn, my boy. The true culprit. Even if what I saw wasn't the precise moment the firearm was discharged, it's almost the same thing. Yes, pointing his gun at the foreign man he was, that young lad in black, that much I myself did see. Furthermore, a visual search of the premises at the time confirmed that we were the only personnel present. Indeed, alone he was, the Englishman, dining all by himself. Therefore, no one other than the black uniform cadet could have dispatched the Englishman over and out. These testimonies are certainly compelling. That's nonsense. The victim, Dr. Wilson, wasn't alone at all. Please, enough of these outbursts already. But there was a woman. There was a young woman at his table. You must have seen her. Everyone there must have seen her. Objection! If you call yourself a lawyer, then you will respect the rules of the court and speak accordingly. We're not here to listen to your fantasies. It is evident beyond reasonable doubt that the victim was alone at the time of the incident. The prosecution has photographic evidence of this fact. Is this a photographic print of the scene of the crime, counsel? Indeed, of the table at which the victim was dining, taken by an investigator immediately after the incident. Okay, let's see here. There's steak, 2 chairs, a bottle of wine, a glass, and all right. As can plainly be seen, there is only one playset. Certainly, based on the appearance of this print, it would be reasonable to conclude that the victim was not in the company of anyone else. This doesn't make any sense. The court will add this new photographic evidence to the record. A bottle of carbonated water and a steak lunch can be seen on the victim's table. I don't understand. What's going on here? It's just not possible that nobody else saw that woman. The waiter before said the same thing. He maintains that Dr. Wilson came to the restaurant alone as well. But that's not true. I saw her. I swear that I saw a woman with him. It would seem that we'll be able to telegraph the report to Great Britain on time after all. The witnesses' testimonies we have just heard leave no further room for doubt. These are very sensitive political times, as we all know. The ink's still fresh on the treaty with Great Britain. To think that I, Taketsuchi Achi, will have contributed to the amity of these two great empires is an honor. How can this be happening? The judge is ready to rule. Stand tall, Ryunosuke. It's not over yet. If what you say is true, then there's something going on here behind the scenes. And now's your chance to expose it, to draw out the truth in your cross-examination. I don't know, Kazuma. The defense is titled to cross-examine the witnesses, but make it quick, understood? Rules can be so unbending at times. Even if what I saw wasn't the precise moment the firearm was discharged, it's almost the same thing. Yes! No, it's not the same thing at all. For a start, I didn't fire that gun. We have a difference of opinion on that. The opinion of a uniformed officer versus that of a fledgling cadet. I don't think so. Consider this, defendant. Just a moment ago, I blinked. Did you? Did you see it? Did you see me blink? How could I? And yet, it is an undeniable fact that I did blink. So there you have it. Proof! Guilty scum. Have what? The sound of the firearm rang in my ears, and the very next moment, I saw you waving the gun at the Englishman. I think that says it all. Don't you? And let us not forget that the antiques dealer witnessed the accused in this most incriminating position as well. Isn't that so, Kurekuta-san? Yes, pointing his gun at the Ford man he was, that young lad in black, that much I did see myself. Yes! It may be true that I was holding the gun at that point in time. But I've told you already, that's only because I picked it up off the floor. Well, obviously, as the culprit, that's the only way you could explain it away. I had just finished drinking my coffee, and I was about to leave the restaurant when I noticed a gun on the floor at Dr. Wilson's feet, so I picked it up. And at exactly that moment, a gunshot rang in my ears. Full of events beyond our control, life is. Sorry? What do you mean? In your case, you found a pistol on the floor and picked it up, which precipitated this testing predicament. Whereas conversely, I failed to pick up the koban from the floor and find myself in an equally testing predicament as a result. Anyway, the fact remains, myself, I did see you, with pistol in hand, standing over the foreigner. Furthermore, our visual search of the premises at the time confirmed that we were the only personnel present. Yes! You must have noticed someone else at Dr. Wilson's table. There was a lady there. Objection! As you have been at pains to point out time and again, I feel I'm growing a callus in my ear. And yet no one else appears to have caught even a glimpse of this woman. If only there'd been more people dining there at the time, then someone else would have noticed her. Unfortunately, it was already past 2 p.m. when it happened. The quiet time between lunch and dinner in any restaurant. I know. Of course, the place was almost empty. It's what you'd expect. Certainly, 2 p.m. is neither here nor there in terms of a time to eat. I wonder if there was a reason why the victim was eating at that time of day, and why he was alone. Yes, Your Excellency, there was indeed a reason. There was? This was found in the victim's jacket pocket. What is that, Counsel? It is a medical report card, Your Excellency. It would seem that the victim had an appointment at a clinic prior to visiting the restaurant. Hata Clinic. Yes, there would indeed appear to be an entry for the date in question. Okay. 19th November, noon to past 1 p.m. The very day of the incident. So the victim went for a late lunch following his appointment. The explanation couldn't be more simple. The prosecution felt no need to submit this evidence before, as it really has no bearing on the case. I wonder. What do you think, Ryunosuke? Well, it is hard to see how it could be related, really. Remember, you can request for it to be entered into the court record as evidence if you think it could be useful. Should I ask for Dr. Wilson's medical report card to be submitted as evidence or not? Always.
Yes!
If I may, I'd like to ask for that medical report card to be submitted as evidence, Your Excellency. On what grounds? The court has already heard conclusive witness testimony. Additional evidence would be extraneous. Ugh, what am I doing? Not to mention that the victim's movements prior to his arrival at the restaurant are of no concern.
Objection!
Whether or not they are of concern is up to us to decide. We have a right to explore all possible avenues. I beg your pardon? You have no authority to refuse a perfectly valid request for the submission of evidence. Very well. The court will grant the defense's request. Youngsters these days are forever asserting their rights. It's a most disturbing trend. Officer, kindly add the victim's medical report card to the court record. Victim's medical report card has been entered into the court record. What we need right now is new clues. We have to explore things from every possible angle, even if they don't seem relevant at first. Right. I hear you. You can conspire to prolong this trial as much as you like, but it's like... let's try it again. But it's the day after the festival already for you. Or perhaps you'd forgotten that these witnesses' testimonies leave no room for doubt. Feel free to reiterate for the accused, Korekuta. Indeed, alone he was, the Englishman, dining all by himself.
Yes!
So you actually saw that with your own eyes, did you? The victim, Dr. Wilson, dining alone. That I did. Forgive me for the position I place you in. So, the testimonies of the old man, the soldier, and the waiter all agree on that point. Isn't that interesting? And let us not forget the incontestable evidence we have to support their statements as well. As can clearly be seen, there is only a single beefsteak on the victim's table, a meal for one. No. The antiques dealer, the sergeant, and the waiter who testified before. It's not impossible that they're all lying. But if so, then why? If I'm perfectly honest, I have absolutely no idea. Therefore, no one other than the black uniform cadet could have dispatched the Englishman. Over and out.
Yes!
Why aren't you telling the truth? What did you say? I clearly remember. There was a woman sitting across the table from the professor. Perhaps one of you might not have noticed. But for both of you to have failed to see the professor's dining companion, it's just not possible. Unfortunately for you, Defendant Naruhodo, it's not just a case of these two witnesses alone. Sorry? The waiter, whose testimony the court heard earlier, clearly stated the same thing. He also said that the victim was alone. That's right. Precisely. In other words, you are the sole proponent of this phantom lady. But If such a woman were indeed present at the scene, the prosecution demands to see proof. And if no such proof exists, the prosecution demands that no further mention of this phantom woman be made. It is a blatant waste of the court's time. There's nothing I can say to that. Excellent work, Ryunosuke. We've gleaned some new information now. Well, yes, but I don't feel like it changes much. I can't see that it brings any real discrepancies to light. I wouldn't be so sure. Let me see that medical report card you got before. You mean this? Yes, this is a brand new piece of evidence. So perhaps we should examine it in a little more detail. How exactly? You'll notice that some pieces of evidence bear a magnifying glass. These are the ones you may examine. Press A, and you can take a closer look at the piece in question. Using right stick, to rotate the evidence in all directions and examine it from all angles. By using left stick, you can move the crosshairs around to hunt for clues that may have been missed before. If the crosshairs start to pulsate, press A to investigate further. So, partner, I think you should take a closer look at this medical report card. See if there isn't something new to be learned by examining it in more detail. All right, I'll see what I can do. I need to use right stick, left stick, and A to inspect any areas in the evidence that look suspicious. Yep. Loop. Let's have a look. This is some kind of medical history. And there's an entry for the day the professor was killed. Extraction of molar with topical anesthesia. Extraction of molar? You mean he had a tooth taken out? It would seem so. Just before the incident, he had a bad tooth removed. Perhaps they use laughing gas. That's the most modern practice in the West for pain relief. Yes, I've heard of this anesthesia. Although it's hard to believe there's anything that can actually stop you feeling pain. There's a cautionary note from the medical practitioner as well. Strictly no food or drink besides water for 3 hours post-procedure until anesthetic effects have passed. Really? Sounds like information worth bearing in mind. Medical report card's information has been updated in the court record. With this new information, the meaning of that one particular statement totally changes, obviously referring to the picture of the steak, because he couldn't have eaten steak. I think it's time we listen to the testimony again, don't you? Definitely. Alrighty, let me make sure that this pushing the start button actually is the options button. Correct. Okay, good. So I can save the game. Because it has been about 44 minutes, I'd like to end this video here. Hopefully tomorrow I'll have a video out a little sooner, you know, it's a little bit late today. I meant to do it a little bit earlier, but I'll see what I can do. And thank you all for being here, and thank you all for the lovely comments. I'm surprised at how many people are still here, still subscribed. Some of you have been subscribed to me from 2 years all the way to 6 years. It's truly incredible, and it's great. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you, and I love this game series. And yes, I just wanted to say thank you, and I look forward to another one tomorrow. So until then, bye-bye!